Welcome to the Common Man Football Show. My name is James Coburn, and today's episode, we're talking about the Miami Dolphins 2017 season review analytics. And this video is mainly going to deal with team statistic data related to the Miami Dolphins in terms of how well they performed on offense, defense, and special teams in 2017. And ultimately, the goal with this video is to give you some perspective in terms of all the areas where they didn't really do that well and where they can improve in the future. So I really want this to be solution-oriented type information for you guys because, again, it doesn't really help anybody just to tell you where they were bad, but to actually give you an idea and some perspective in terms of the areas where they were bad and where they can improve in the future. So ultimately, that's what comes off in this video. Is I don't want any team to be bad. I want them to get better. And this video is really going to be focused in on all the areas where they were not that great and where they need to be in the future. So this is a very future-focused kind of video in many ways by looking at the past and then looking at the future. And of course, all terms and definitions are going to be in the description. So if you're new to the channel, if you're new to the content that I provide, if you're new to the team statistics and the other sort of analytics, all that stuff will be there. You can pause the video at many points in the video and just look at information and look at the description to kind of give a better idea about stuff. But ultimately, I'm going to do my best to kind of explain things as I go along so that you kind of get a little bit of a clue into it, and then maybe the terms and definitions will give you a better idea. But ultimately, let's get into it. So starting with the Dolphins 2017 team review, areas where the Dolphins were not that great. They were not that amazing on offense in terms of turnover percentage and offensive score percentage. They were pretty decent at sack allowance. So they didn't allow a lot of sacks in terms of their offense. But they turned the football over way too much, and they also didn't put up enough points on the board in terms of offensive score percentage. So those are the two main areas on offense where they have to get better. They have to stop turning the football over as much, and they have to put more points on the board. But sack allowance was really not that bad. So that's one positive to look at on offense. Defensively speaking, though, below average in terms of defensive offensive score percentage, below average in terms of turnover ratio, below average in terms of sack percentage, and below average in terms of interception percentage. Across the board, allowed way too many points on defense, didn't turn the football over, didn't get a lot of interceptions, and didn't get a lot of sacks in terms of sack rate and those other sort of areas. So this is just a glimpse of the defense. Like, the offense in some ways was better than the defense. Again, in some ways, they were better, which is saying something considering if you've seen the Dolphins this year. So lots of areas to kind of worry about there. On top of that, when you get the special teams data, punt return yardage was below average. Kick return yardage was also below average. So I would definitely consider getting a punter and kicker in the future. Defensive punt return yardage and defensive kick return yardage were above average in both those areas. So I wouldn't really worry about that kind of stuff. Field goal percentage also was pretty decent, 90.08 out of 100, which is a very good mark for a place kicker. So at least that isn't a problem. Extra point percentage was a little lacking, though. Punting average was about 65.35, and of course their overall team score was 8.82 out of 100, which is not that amazing to say the least. So ultimately, the Dolphins were not that great on offense in many different statistics, but they were pretty decent at preventing sacks, and defensively they were just below average in terms of pretty much every single major metric there. So ultimately, that's just kind of how the data kind of shakes up for them in terms of overall season data. This is how they compared to every Dolphins team since 1998. So this gives some perspective in terms of how they performed last year versus this year. In many ways, the big difference was in 2016 they didn't allow as many turnovers compared to this year. They also had a better offensive score percentage in 2016 compared to this year. So the offense definitely regressed. The defense regressed as well. They regressed in terms of defensive offensive score percentage. They regressed in terms of turnovers. They also regressed in terms of interceptions. So the defense also kind of regressed a decent amount. Punt return yardage and kick return yardage regressed. Field goal percentage, though, did get better. So place kicker, big improvement this year. In fact, this was the best year they've had since 1998 in terms of the field goal percentage. So this is basically the best field goal percentage they've had since 1998. So definitely positive there. Extra point percentage was really not that great. Of course, punting average got a little bit better, but kind of the same ballpark. And of course, their overall team grade was 8.82 out of 100, which is not that great. And when you actually look at that number compared to every team, this was the second worst Miami Dolphin team since 1998 from a statistical standpoint. So pretty bad, again, pretty bad in terms of the how poor they were this year, statistically speaking. So now let's get into how they can get better. So all the areas where they really need to improve. So this chart right here deals with the average score and all these data points for 12 to 16 win teams, 9 to 11 win teams, 8 wins or more, and 7 wins or less. So it gives you a perspective on where you were and where you need to be, or at least where you should be if you want to get into that 12 to 16 win area, 9 to 11 win area, because those areas are where the playoffs happen. When you win 9 to 11 wins, you have a decent shot of potentially making the playoffs. 12 to 16 wins is a pretty decent shot at making the playoffs, of course, but also getting a first round bye and stuff like that, because that's what the ultimate goal is, to get that first seed, etc. So all the areas where they need to improve: offense and defense, of course, definitely. They need to not have so many turnovers. That's another thing that needs to improve. They need to get into that 60-70 range. Sack allowance actually is where it needs to be. So if they can actually maintain that, I think they'll be fine. Offensive score percentage, of course, definitely needs to get way up there in terms of the 60, 70 to 80 range if they want to actually win a lot of football games. Defensive offensive score percentage needs to improve significantly. Turnover ratio also needs to improve significantly. Sack percentage, exactly. Interception, exactly. Punting, kicking, definitely needs to improve. Field goal percentage is exactly where it needs to be. Punting average, pretty much exactly where it needs to be. And, of course, extra point percentage could improve a little bit. But ultimately, offense and defense, those are the big areas to look at, especially when it comes to offensive score percentage. Defense, in terms of every single statistical category, they really need to improve. But ultimately, this is just all the areas where they really need they need to, if they want to win a lot more games, if they want to get to 8 wins or more, 9 to 11 wins, 12 to 16 wins, they really need to improve these specific statistical points by any means necessary. And I think if they do, then there's a lot better chance of them actually getting to that amount of wins if they actually improve those areas. And then the last sort of chart, this deals with other data points that I don't really talk about that much. Again, all terms and definitions are in the description, so you can pause the video right now and just look at this at your leisure, if you will, and kind of get an idea of different sort of things like that. But this basically looks at how things went from 2016 to 2017 in terms of overall data. And when you look at it, first of all, completion percentage, of course, really dropped off the map a little bit in terms of first down, second down, and third down. Big drop in terms of completion percentage data with the pass. The running game also took a big, drop. Jay Ajayi, of course, was traded, and there was a lot of sort of rumblings and different stuff like that. But the running game took a big dip, in terms of the ability to convert with the run on first down and second down. So another big area where there were some problems. And then, of course, when it comes to first down conversion rate, pretty much dropped down in all areas: first down, second down, and third down. So offensively speaking, the completion percentage data just went way down. The running game got worse, and the ability to convert with the pass also got worse. So just kind of a triple whammy of getting worse on offense that ultimately led to a lot of their issues in terms of offense, et cetera. So definitely kind of a big issue for them to kind of think about and discuss in terms of their overall team. But and of course, you can look at this information and compare it to all the other Dolphin teams if you want, because that's always fun, but to give you some perspective on things. But I would say those are kind of the big sort of areas to think about and kind of discuss and think about improving is those specific areas to kind of think about. Ultimately, what should you target in free agency? What should you target in the draft? In terms of the draft and free agency, you could go after more offensive linemen, but the sack allowance really wasn't that bad. What I really would try to target is, say, a quarterback, skill positions, those types of things. And also get players who don't turn the football over as much, because the turnover ratio was way, you cannot turn the football over that much and win a lot of football games. You need more offensive skill position players because you have to be able to put up more points. Defensively speaking, I don't even know where to begin. You need defensive players that can create sacks. You need defensive players that can create turnovers, interceptions, etc. So you pretty much need everything on defense. I mean, there's no way around it. But ultimately, that's kind of the big issue with the defense, is the defense just needs pretty much everything, if you will, in terms of overall team sort of stuff. So definitely another area of concern, but I don't think you really need to worry about a place kicker. I don't really think you need to worry about a punter. You might want to target a punt returner and a kick returner or some kind of special teams ace, but other than that, I would say a lot of the data just kind of shapes up pretty well for them. So ultimately, those are all the areas where I think you need to target in free agency in the draft. It's a lot of areas, don't get me wrong, but I do think you do have some areas where you don't have to worry too much about stuff. So that's definitely a good thing. And of course, my name is James Coburn. You can find my other work at draftcoburn.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Geometrics. And if you like this content and you want more content like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Share this video as well with anybody that you know. Hit that notification button so that you're always reminded when another video of mine drops. And I will talk to you guys in the next video. Peace. Thank you.